Privet Katila Wandingruski Desu. So today, I wanted to be a little bit wonky and present a list of environmental policies that the American right wing should embrace. So this might seem like a little bit of deja vu, but I have made 2 videos previously on my channel as it relates to environmentalism. In the right-wing case for environmentalism video, I go into the philosophical underpinnings on why being an environmental conservationist is inherently a right-wing idea. And in the second video, The Green Right Rises, I go into the worldview that a person on the right must look at as it applies to nature, and how does the environment fit into a right-wing society. In this video, I will finally delve deep into a list of policy proposals that a right-wing party or a right-wing leader should advocate for on the environmental front, which will offer a bold and realistic vision against the left. So having a list of concrete policies is massively important, especially for the American right wing. Currently, the whole debate is monopolized by the left wing in terms of the environment with their Green New Deal. Most commentators or conservatives I should say, have abandoned trying to take environmentalism back into the right-wing fold, and instead try to deflect. They say that environmental protection is simply socialism, and it's not worth doing anything about. So, as mentioned in my other environmental videos, this is our cause. The soil of our land is our birthright, and should be conserved just as hard as we try to conserve our culture, traditions, institutions, and so forth. So the list of policies I'm about to show to you guys, I like to call the Green American Dream. Now, like for example, how the Patriotic New Deal is like the overall title for my immigration stuff. So what is the goal of these policies? What is the goal of the Green American Dream? Well, policies in and of themselves are really just tools to get us to a certain point, to fix a problem, to get a certain outcome. What is the goal of all this? Well, these comprehensive set of policies would aim to provide America with 100% clean energy production by 2050. It will strive to protect and expand our national parks and protect our endangered species. It will aim to greenify our cities and landscapes, expand recycling, and reduce overall waste and pollution. It will try to reform our transportation, production, and agricultural sectors and industries to be more green. And finally, it will use private and public research to create the new technologies of tomorrow to have a clean environment. All of this will be done by utilizing a mix of market competition and market forces with government investment and government intervention. So, the first plank of this Green American Dream is to institute a carbon fee and dividend. And it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a fee on the amount of output of carbon you put in, and a chunk of those fees that the government collects from that will be sent back as dividends back to the citizens. This would be the main funding mechanism that will raise the funds needed to do most of the rest of the policies that I mentioned. So this is a market-based solution to tax an externality. Basically, if you're going to pump carbon or methane or any sort of greenhouse gas or pollution into the sky, then you will have to pay for that, because as we know, that actually has devastating effects on the environment, and that doesn't just affect you. So you have to pay for that externality. Now, the cool thing about this also is that as we transition into a 100% clean energy economy, the tax will stop being administered, basically. So this will prevent the government from just having a random tax forever, even if we get to 100% clean energy. It's going to be like an upward and then downward slope. It will start small, slowly increase, and then this will push people to, and basically this is like a makes businesses focus on, okay, there's now a bigger cost to doing pollution and putting carbon in the air. Now I'm gonna have to do something about it. And the thing is that once people move towards 100% like carbon neutral economy, what will happen at that point is then no one's gonna be paying the taxes, because no one's gonna be basically putting carbon, and then the tax is just basically stop being administered. So it's kind of like it goes away once the problem is fixed. And then basically the dividends, the funds to the masses, will allow for any sort of increase in energy costs in the short term to be weathered as businesses take it towards moving towards green energy. Now, depending on how high we tax the carbon, we can raise almost $250 billion a year. Now, as I mentioned before, for the second policy, and while I mentioned that a good chunk of the carbon fee money will go back as a dividend to the citizens, that doesn't mean all of it will. So where will some of the other funds go? Well, $40 billion of that $250 billion a year will be spent as a direct stimulated investment into green technologies, installing them, creating them. This is a subsidy and adds another market pull on businesses. Think of these two policies as a carrot and stick. The stick is the carbon fee. You pump a ton of carbon and pollution, you get whacked with the stick, which is the carbon fee. The carrot, which is like dangling in front of you, is, hey, here's the alternative, and which is moving towards green power. And this $40 billion investment will help individuals and businesses and so forth install this green technology as soon as possible. So it's kind of like a carrot and stick, as you can say. The third policy will also come directly from the carbon fee money, which will be a $30 billion a year research and development fund, which will directly fund through government investment, which will also partner with private companies to help develop the green technology of the future and have it be created right here in America. I'm talking things like nuclear fusion, carbon capture, more energy efficiency in electrical generation and infrastructure, just the whole 9 yards. We're going into, this is going to be an investment into the future, so we could have a scientific and technological edge, but also, not only that, it will also put America on the forefront of climate protection tech and help us get to clean energy and live in a more green world, much more easier and much more faster. And when we have the patents created here in America, the technology here in America, we could then sell that to abroad and, be a scientific, technological superpower, basically. And being at the forefront of that innovation would also create a lot of jobs. The fourth policy that will come from also the carbon fee money is a $20 billion a year education and displacement fund. We owe a honor-bound loyalty to the workers in the coal, oil, and natural gas industry, because going to 100% green energy will be harmful to them. And thus, what this $20 billion a year fund will basically, it will be spent on focusing on helping the coal miners, the oil workers, and other people in the fossil fuel sector to be able to get the full benefits of the old jobs they had, basically what they earned, and have the new innovation and industrial expansion from this clean energy investment hit their communities. So instead of leaving them out to dry like we did with the factory workers, we need to directly make sure that the investments of this new energy revolution will be felt in their communities. We can't leave them out to dry. The fund will help displaced workers get the training, education, and benefits they need to transition, and also ensure that the benefits of clean energy, goes right back to their community, as I said. And the way I like to put it is, for every coal mine that closes, there should be a solar power factory that takes its place. Basically, we can't leave anyone behind, and that we owe our honor-bound duty to those types of people. So, the fifth policy is now going to focus away from the funds and fees of the carbon tax, and it's now going to look more deeper into how we're going to protect the environment. So the second way we will raise money is through a carbon tariff. This is a great tool to force the rest of the world who continue to pollute or pump greenhouse gases into the air to pay for that costs. Countries that are green will be able to not have to pay for this tariff. The reason why this would be really good for raising money and helping the other nations change is because we're one of the biggest importers of goods in the world, and us having a carbon tariff will raise the funds to force the world to go green. And what this will do basically is, it's like, because the thing is, we need the whole world to be on board, because even if America changes its all 100%, we're only 15% of greenhouse gas emitters, so we need to, somehow have a mechanism so the other nations of the world can change. But how else are we going to have the rest of the world try to change with us? Well, with revenue from just general taxation and from the carbon tariff, we will under the broader national industrial strategy, which is under my economic plan, which I haven't released a video on yet, but I will, in the future. Basically, this national industrial strategy, a part of it will use from the use of direct investments, which I mentioned earlier, and the new technological developments that I mentioned also earlier, we will reorient our trade laws towards export orientation. This will use the green jobs that we create here at home by the creation of new green products, and then the government takes these made in America products and sells them abroad. These products can be used to pull nations into our orbit and help the world fight climate change. This would make America the world leader in industry, technology, climate protection, and so forth. So basically, all this policy is a big way to get jobs here at home, and then exporting them, and it's basically like a three-man punch type thing, or just a multi-step process to help make sure that America gets jobs and uses and basically sells those made in America products abroad, and this will also help the world become more green as well. So this is going to be a worldwide effort to help save our environment, because it's a kind of almost a humanity thing, to be quite honest, actually. So the sixth policy builds upon the industrial strategy, which I mentioned earlier, and instead of focusing on the foreign markets, this will focus on the domestic front. So the domestic green strategy will have a national action plan. So basically with these $40 billion in investment funds, basically we will divert these investment funds to strategic locations around the country, where the federal government will work with the state governments. For example, how would this work out? Well, in New Mexico and Arizona, we're going to work with them to install solar panels there and get solar panel power there. In Iowa, we can use wind power. In Pennsylvania, we can expand nuclear power, and so forth. This is a coordinated plan of a national action plan, which will ensure that America is self-sufficient in energy production, help create jobs across all of America, and with a keen focus, as I mentioned, on communities devastated by deindustrialization. And basically, we will utilize solar, wind, nuclear, biomass, wave, geothermal, and in the beginning, also natural gas. All these things will make us self-sufficient in energy, make it be green, and basically work on a federal and state level and local level to help make sure that we're green from the bottom up, basically. So the seventh policy would use funds from a separate but more broader $1 trillion infrastructure investment to reinvest in expanding green infrastructure. So this doesn't come from the carbon fee. This comes from an infrastructure which would also come under the economics plan, but that's for another video. But basically under this $1 trillion infrastructure investment, we're going to be investing in green infrastructure. What does that mean? That means creating a bullet train-like system. It means subsidizing electric cars, creating charging stations, and so forth. And the way the bullet train would work, it'd be kind of like how we did the national highway system in the 50s, and how China was able to do it in their country, along with more smaller routes to smaller cities and so forth. So basically, it's kind of like, it'll take a few decades. It might take years. It's going to take years. We can't do it in a little bit. It's going to be, but by 2050, we could probably make most of it completed. And so it could be like an alternative to air travel. Also, along with this, the government will raise the federal fuel efficiency standards for cars to about 45 to 50 miles per gallon to slow vehicle emissions. And payment for all this would, for the green stuff, would be paid for by raising the gas tax and indexing to inflation, because we haven't raised the gas tax in a long while, and it's now way below where it was supposed to be. So that's the way we'd fund this. So the eighth policy goes along with my patriotic New Deal, which would put an immigration moratorium for 10 years, and then afterwards would slice legal immigration from current numbers to 90%. So basically what this means is that we're going to have less people move to the United States, which will be the ultimate environmentally friendly policy. I mentioned this in my Green Right Rises video, but borders are an environment's best friend, and is what we must use to help our environment. So the reason why for this is, while liberals want to debate on how we can minimize a person's CO2 costs and how they use electricity, what they eat, how they drive, the best thing we can do for all of it is just not have extra people come into this country. The net effect of this, if this gets implemented, is tens of millions of less people in our America through immigration. And basically having tens of millions of less people would basically ultimately help us get to our goal of 100% being carbon neutral by 2050. And, this would, be a giant boon. And, no, you don't have extra cars on your streets. You don't have extra people, having to build housing. You don't have extra people consuming electricity. Less people is good for the environment. So the ninth program that I've devised is a new youth program called the YGA, or the Youth Jobs Association, which would work with states and private partnerships on a wide variety of environmentally friendly programs, such as a massive tree planting endeavor, aka reforestation. We need lots of tree planting, a vigorous anti-littering and cleaning up trash policy, so an anti-littering campaign as well, and it would also be used as labor to green up our cities and clean them up. This would focus be a focus of a new youth jobs organization for teens and young adults who wish to get job experience and foster community bonds while also giving them an outlet to help with the environment. So this is where people could, like, if they want to help the environment, this is a way they could be involved. This would also give jobs because, they'd be paid. It wouldn't be completely free. It wouldn't be the best job, but it'd be like, if you're unemployed and you want, some help do a cause, it'll help you get community bonds in terms of, like, helping with your local community. It will help, get you experience, and it'll also help you chip in to actually help the environment yourself. So this is a reforestation, anti-littering, youth jobs program kind of thing that would actually help the environment instead of it just being a purely economic thing. So yeah, that's the purpose of it. The 10th policy is going to be kind of interesting. Well, the 10th policy would focus squarely on preserving our great national parks and expanding them to ensure our great outdoors are not wiped away for profit. This is a rich tradition. Our national parks are literally the lifeblood of America. The preservation of them should be one of our top priorities. A nationalist government should fight to prevent any sort of, like, drilling or mining or industrial development on our most sacred national parks. Along with this, there should be, like, a federal environmental week around Earth Day that would sponsor awareness about environmental topics and send school trips to these parks so children can experience these parks themselves. And we should also allow these parks to be open for the average citizen. They could hike there, they could camp there, and so forth, as this is their land, provided they don't litter or trash it up. So you can't just let people do whatever they want. But this land is their land. They're able to hike it or explore it or whatever they want to do. Just they can't trash it up. The 11th policy would use the funds, a part of the funds raised from the carbon tariff money, and utilize a worldwide effort to help clean trash from our oceans, and help with an international effort to help protect marine life. This would work with domestic efforts to help move away. This would also work in conjunction, I should say, with domestic efforts to help move away from plastic and towards more biodegradable products. Basically, the oceans aren't really claimed by a nation. They're kind of that's why they're called international waters. And so there should be an international effort to help clean the giant, there's like in the Pacific, there's like a giant trash heap that's the size of Texas. And, there needs to be efforts to clean, plastic up. We need to clean it all up. And, trash of all sorts should be reduced. A part of the carbon fee money should also go towards a local movement towards investing in, like, a universal recycling program. And whenever we can, with regulations, we must ban the worst types of toxic trash and chemical industrial waste. These efforts can help reduce our overall waste and help our oceans. Basically, this is, overall, recycling is a good thing, reducing waste is a good thing, and, we should move towards against, trash, basically, and help reduce it as much as we can. Yeah. All right. So the 12th policy is would help deregulate zoning within the cities. So what this would allow us to do is build with more density and allow more people to live within the city and be more dense with it. And thus they don't have to use as much carbon to transport and travel, and instead could rely on a self-sufficient city system that is less carbon intensive. We could allow people to build duplexes, triplexes, and lower our overall electrical usage, and finally allow to make our cities be more alive and green instead of just being concrete glass skyscrapers. Along with this, we must ensure that new industrial development and infrastructure construction goes towards clean and non-environmentally destructive means. What this all means basically is that with the zoning especially, is that within the cities, we don't want, people to, we want to be able to have more people live in per square mile. If they want to live in the cities, now if you want to live in the suburbs, that should be protected. But, like, if you want to live in the city should be able to have zoning deregulated in such a way where they're able to live in a duplex or a triplex or a multi-family, apartment or whatever. This would help people, be more compact. We could install basically have cities be these hubs of, like, self-sufficiency within the nation in a way, where they're able to grow their own food, maybe that's right now kind of hard, but, basically they're able to, like, you could go on the public transport system, you don't have, if you live, and all that. And, basically, it's basically to allow people to not have to be basically the aim of it is to eliminate urban sprawl as much as possible, and allow people to have cities be more green, have cities be more alive, instead of just being these like sprawling concrete hellscapes. Basically, they have to be more organic and more nature. It's kind of broad, I know, but that's the goal of it. So the 13th policy would put generic environmental protection policy in place. We would install an environmental czar to ensure all government laws ensure that we have clean air, clean land, and clean water. And a nationalist government, should vigorously enforce tough pollution controls with heavy fines and controls and crackdowns on abuses by companies that trash out our river and airs with smog and trash. And regulations in general, they must be implemented the regulations must be smart, but yet not overly burdensome. We don't want too much environmental regulations in the sense that they can't be completely useless, but if they're useful and they help the environment, then they should be in place. Along this, we should work to eliminate unnecessary regulations so that businesses can innovate and be competitive. We need like a relationship like how the government does it with SpaceX. It's a mixture of private innovation mixed with government investment, which will allow us to use the forces of market and the government to meet our climate goals and have a strong economy as well. So basically, just generically, we need to have clean land and clean air and clean water, and just be more environmentally conscious in what we do with our regulations. The 14th policy would vigorously enforce the protection of endangered species and their ecosystems and habitats. Our wildlife must be relatively free and be able to maintain a balance within an ecosystem. Along with this, we need to have strong animal cruelty laws to ensure high federal guidelines for the welfare and health of animal usage in a wide variety of industries. What this is to do is basically for us to be stewards of the nation. We must learn to live with nature and within our means and be stewards of the land and stewards of the animals and of this earth, and not destroy it all for profit. And basically, we need to continue our efforts to help protect the endangered species, make sure they could populate again, and then when they're not, we could take them off it. But, we need to keep, and, whenever there is an endangered species, we need to be able to find that out and immediately take actions to preserve the species and maintain a balance within the ecosystem. And more broadly, make us have balance with nature. So the 15th policy would revolve around a new era for our agricultural industry. We need to make an effort to localize our food sources and invest into rural infrastructure and development and connect our small farmers to a wider market. Along with this, we need to de-zone our cities. We should look forward towards building farm skyscrapers, as I mentioned a little earlier in this episode, or this video. We want our cities to be self-sufficient as well, and having farm skyscrapers would be a good step towards that. So which are kind of like what they sound like, by the way. They're basically buildings, but instead of offices, they're home to food. And we also should use genetic engineering and such so we can make America self-sufficient with food and water production. So when we localize our food sources and with rural development, we will help our smart farmers out and connect them to the cities. And basically, as we did with energy, we need to have a national strategy for food production, which will allow us to be self-sufficient. And the way we would do that is basically invest into our rural communities, because that's where they're at the forefront of protecting our environment. So food, we need to be self-sufficient in food. We need to make sure that the food we grow we need to basically move, as I mentioned in my healthcare video, we need to move towards like high fat, unhealthy food, and towards more smaller portions and more, things like that. And along with this, we need to basically just invest in the rural communities and help make sure they have the infrastructure and the development needed to help spread the food to the American people. The 16th policy would basically focus on decentralizing and creating locally owned energy and water production on a local level. The other option, which we could also do, is move towards national control of these strategic industries so that all Americans can enjoy the fruits of their soil. This could be modeled after the Tennessee Valley Authority and such like that. Where Americans, because Americans should be able to create their own energy and use their own homegrown food and own water supplies. But in cases where private interest overrides, because where there is cases where private interests override the basic American right to cheap energy and water and such, then the government should step in and deem them strategic industries. Because, like, for example, the reason why I put this in is because not only on a moral level, but on, like, let's say you live in a city and you need electrical production. Like, how many, like, water pipes do you need, or how many electrical lines? You only could have one, and if only one group of people could own them, then that's a monopoly, and the government should own that should own that and run it for the citizens. Now, we could also move towards where the people own it, but basically, there needs to be a way where our basic resources aren't owned by a monopoly of people, basically. And, and I'm not saying they should be able for free, but, maybe in the future where we live in a post-scarcity society, they could be free. But, right now, they have to, water and electricity and such like that should be owned by the people because this is their land. So these were my comprehensive set of policies that a right-wing nationalist should embrace in America. They're not, some are some are very specific, some are more broad, and almost bordering on some goals in a way. But I'm not a wonk by any means, and I need to basically be with more smarter people who could put these goals and even the more specific stuff into concrete actual action and how that could be written into a law or such. But this is the vision, the overall kind of stuff we need to kind of gear towards into a more specific kind of concrete manner than just kind of wide philosophical topics, as I mentioned in my other environmental videos. For you guys, we need to have a vision. This is the right, we need to have a strong environmental foundation, and we need to understand what we're fighting for exactly. I want you to imagine an America that is free from the shackles of pollution, trash, and waste. A world to give to our children that is clean and fresh, where they can enjoy the fruits of their soul from the ground to the sky. A self-sufficient, 100% green, a free and clean America. So that was my video. I hope you all enjoyed that. And if you did, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And share this video around and comment what your thoughts are. Aim high, wander on from America with Russian love.